No reported income for the last 5 years, and the only claim to fame you've got, as far as I could find, was finishing second place in the International Rope Skipping Championship in Boulder, Colorado in 1984. Quite an accomplishment. What was your speciality? Double Dutch?
Fuck this guy.
T, I can handle this, dog. You darn nuts looking bitch! I know you didn't step to me,
what
dog.
What are you doing, man?
That skipping shit cut me deep, dog.
Suck on this, Blondie!
Fuck my eyes, man!
Get him out of here.
High panted bitch!
I am gonna be watching you.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna prove you wrong, big guy. Because I can play this game a lot better than you.
Really?
Yeah, really. You got something to say?
No, it's just admiring your pants, officer.
Right.
Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store, affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Fatt Jabro, this is the Mundane Matt channel, and oh my god. We're gonna see a bit of a controversy kind of stem from this particular person, and not maybe in the way you might think. Now, what you're looking at on the screen right now is the Gab page for Dick Masterson. Well, you could call him, I guess, you know, an internet personality would be a way to describe him. He runs the Dick Show, which currently on Patreon is pulling in $18,722 per month. Damn. And so he's making pretty good money doing what he does, right? Doing what he does. So over here on on Gab, he just posted a little bit ago, I just got served. Maddox is filing a $20 million lawsuit against me and Patreon in New York unless Patreon removes my wildly successful account. And he links over to it. Now, as you can see over here on Gab, he's got only 1,000 followers, 1,117 followers. So it's really, it's a growing service, one for people who enjoy free speech and don't want to get shut down in that particular fashion. But this lawsuit, man, this lawsuit is crazy. It's 53 pages. I'm not going to go through all of it. Just kind of the beginnings of it, and essentially, from what I can gather, what's going on here. So Maddox, who you might know from YouTube, really over the top personality. I've met Maddox at VidCon last summer. Good guy, and this is one of those things where I'm actually more on his side in this regard than I'm not, looking at what they're presenting, especially what they're trying to do with this $20 million lawsuit. So it says here that Maddox and Jane Doe are suing Dax Herrera, aka Dick Masterson. You can see they're also suing Patreon, and Asteros Kakanos, who's another internet personality that works with Dick Masterson, I believe. And it's a whole list of people, but the key to remember here essentially is Dick Masterson and Patreon. That's the key to remember. So it says here that plaintiffs Maddox and Jane Doe, by and through their undersigned attorneys, the Landau Group, as and for their complaint against defendants Dax Herrera, also known as Dick Masterson, Defendant Foundation Digital LLC, Weber Shandwick, Joshua Kaufman, Asteros Kokonos, Trevor Burt, Patreon Incorporated, and Jordan Cope, collectively the defendants. And that's a lot of defendants for this one situation. Saying here that Maddox is a writer and internet personality residing in and around Los Angeles, California, conducting business in New York. Plaintiff Jane Doe is an individual residing in and around Los Angeles, California. Plaintiff Jane Doe and Plaintiff Maddox, I can't pronounce his last name, I'm not even going to try, were in a relationship. At most times alleged in the complaint, she is referred to as Plaintiff Maddox's girlfriend in the complaint. Saying here that the defendant, Dax Herrera, is an individual residing in or around Los Angeles, California, conducting business in New York. Herrera is the Vice President of Technology and the co-founder of Defendant Foundation Digital LLC, a search engine optimization and marketing company conducting business in New York with clients such as Abra, ESPN, and Disney. Which is interesting because he's kind of like almost essentially doxing Dick Masterson, like this, you know, kind of like notorious troll for having associations with Disney. And we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this. I wouldn't be surprised if this actually picks up and goes wide, where Foundation Digital would find themselves without a partner in Disney, so to speak. Defendant Greg Bozer is a president and co-founder of Foundation Digital, conducting business in New York. Defendant Bozer has promoted and appeared on Herrera's podcast, The Dick Show. And so it goes through the rest of these people here. And you've got, again, that's a lot of stuff. So here's the meat of it. And again, I'm just going to go through a bit of this to give you an idea of how massive this 53-page document is and what they are alleging. So in 2014, Maddox launched a podcast with Herrera titled The Biggest Problem in the Universe. Prior to said podcast, Maddox was a highly successful author and internet personality, and his book entitled The Alphabet of Manliness achieved number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list. In 1997, Maddox developed the website, The Best Page in the Universe, and by 2014, Maddox's YouTube videos had been viewed by millions of people, including hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Maddox brought his fan base, money, and resources to the aforementioned podcast and requested defendant Herrera to participate in it. In 2014, Herrera was relatively unknown, had a small fan base, few resources, and therefore being included in Plaintiff's podcast represented a huge opportunity for him. The podcast became one of the most successful on the internet. It ran for over 2 years. The podcast ended on or about May 31st, 2016, which ended Maddox and Herrera's business relationship and association, or so Maddox had thought. Subsequent to the podcast ending, Herrera, in conjunction with other individual defendants named herein, created a cyber mob attacks and numerous online harassment campaigns against Maddox and his girlfriend that have endured until the present. The harassment campaigns Herrera and other defendants have created and continue to create against plaintiffs are appalling, wanton, vindictive, ruthless, and patently repulsive. What's even more nauseating is that Herrera, in conjunction with the other defendants, has created a thriving business based around their continued harassment campaigns, cyber mob attacks, and threats against plaintiffs. That's a lot there to allege, right? That's a lot there to allege, is that there's all this attacks on Maddox and everything else. And going through some of the things you can see, unfortunately, we can't verify any of this information that's in this document. There are links to Dick Masterson's Twitter profile that his account has now been suspended, and there were no archives of that. I'm pretty sure that Maddox and his attorneys have screenshots and everything else, but for actual Internet Archive purposes, I can't find anything. We're seeing, like a lot of stuff here that is really, really, really interesting. Now, it goes on to say that the most lucrative aspect of Herrera's business and vitriol against Maddox is his podcast titled Dick Masterson is Creating the Dick Show, hereafter known as The Show, which is distributed through Patreon. Presently, the show has 3,228 patrons, paying Herrera roughly or anywhere between $19,673 to over $22,000 a month. But even looking at this here, we can see that that's not accurate. However, he has dropped patrons since this was filed, so it's possible that that's where he saw that decrease of approximately $900. So the show is also linked to Herrera's YouTube station and other social media such as Facebook and Twitter. Patreon is an online platform that allows individuals to set up a web page for their creations. The creator of the page can then charge each patron a fee or a pledge to access said creations. In addition to this fee, creators can charge additional fees whereby their patrons may pay additional fees to access other content, such as an extra podcast or merchandise. Likewise, creators can create incentives for their patrons whereby if a patron does X, the creator may give patron a t-shirt or other merchandise. So we know how Patreon works. Herrera, with the other defendants herein, have used Dick Masterson persona across social media and the internet, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, to create a lucrative business based upon creating violent and hateful content directed at and against Maddox and his girlfriend, thereby encouraging and inciting their listeners and followers to threaten, stalk, harass, defame, and interfere with all aspects of Maddox's personal and professional lives. Now, here's where we get into the instances of this, and this is where, again, this is stuff that goes beyond just your standard trolling. It's again 52-page document, 53-page document. I really recommend you guys read it. Herrera, or for instance, one of Maddox's major sponsors on his network was from a company called Harry's. Harry's is an online-based business that sells razor and other men's shaving products. Herrera created a harassment campaign explained below to destroy Maddox's relationship with the company. Now, going after someone's sponsors is not an uncommon practice in this situation. We've seen this happen with a multitude of YouTubers over the years, where people who don't like what they do go after their sponsors as a way of kind of, you know, cutting them off at the knees of an extra financial income. And I'm never on board with that at all. I just feel it's such a really crappy way of going about things. Like, you may not like someone's opinion, but if another company is on board with, you know, a sponsor, sponsoring them, like, who?
All right, testing. All right, fuck this. I'm turning this MimeoKast into an actual fucking stream. Let's hear that again. Mundane Fatt.
Shaving products. Herrera created a harassment campaign explained below to destroy Maddox's relationship with the company. Now, going after someone's sponsors is not an uncommon practice in this situation.
Right.
We've seen this happen with a multitude of YouTubers over the years, where people who don't like what they do go after their sponsors as a way of kind of, you know, cutting them off at the knees of an extra financial income. And I'm never on board with that at all.
Yeah, you're never on board with that. You were a main component in Gamergate early on, you fat slop of shit, which the whole original idea with that became to go after the sponsors of fucking shitty ass rags like Kotaku and Polygon. You were totally okay with that. How is this fucking different? And the whole reason that Harry's dropped Maddox is because his stupid little bitch podcast network faggot friend Jesse said something about Dick's friend Denzel that was kind of a half joke, but there was nothing really funny about it. But yeah, someone mentioned that to Harry's, and they're like, ah, fuck this Maddox guy. That's the same thing as telling IBM and BMW or Mercedes or whatever the fuck that they shouldn't be advertising with Kotaku because they don't do their fucking job properly, which you were totally okay with, Jarbo.
I just feel it's such a really crappy way of going about things. Like, you may not like someone's opinion, but if another company is on board with, you know, sponsoring them, like, who cares? It just, if it doesn't affect you, who cares? I mean, unless that person is calling for actual violence or assault of somebody.
Kotaku wasn't calling for violence. They were just doing a bad job at reporting video games. You're fine with taking away their advertisers. You and your Gamergate buddies applauded that.
It's just their opinion.
Every time they drop sponsors.
But if it's going to become a targeted harassment campaign against somebody, then we can see why this lawsuit was filed. Now, so Herrera created Herrera encouraged his fans to troll through plaintiff's network looking for clips to take out of context. Herrera, then in coordination with his fans and other defendants herein, spammed Harry's social media sites with defamatory and outrageous accusations against Maddox. Defendant Herrera willfully and maliciously encouraged his fans to contact plaintiff sponsors on his podcast and even justified this harassment. Further, Herrera posted about it on his Facebook page, called Maddox a liar, and incited his fans by explaining more hot goss would be coming. Clearly hot gossip. But you can see here, Facebook page post from January 6th, calling him a lying piece of shit, and so on and so forth.
Accurate.
So it says here that as a result of the foregoing, Harry's canceled his sponsorship on January 9th, 2017. So you can see that this was from the 6th, and then 3 days later the harassment campaign worked. This
I
decision
gotta
by
deal with
Harry's
this,
was based
Jabro.
on
I
a targeted
can't.
harassment campaign
Can't sit
directed
here and
at
just listen to you talk.
directed by defendant Herrera against plaintiff. And Harry's responded by saying, "The social media response we received from trying to sponsor the show bears a cost. As
Grab
such,
the
our
wall,
brand
you
isn't
Assassin's
comfortable
Creed
taking
ripoff
risk here.
motherfucker.
If this is in fact a targeted harassment campaign that's disappointing and frustrating, we hope that we're able to get it resolved as soon as possible." And given how much money was being paid out by Harry's to Maddox, I completely understand why Maddox would want to get that back and deal with that.
He should have fired Jesse
after that.
He should have fired Jesse after fucking Jesse called Denzel a nigger for no real reason. There's no reason he should have been commenting about Denzel or Dick Masterson at all. Ugh, God damn it.
Deal that they had was that Harry's was to pay $45 per every 1,000 impressions or CPM, which means that Harry's would pay plaintiff $45 for every 1,000 downloads. At the time of the campaign, Maddox was receiving 30 to 40,000 downloads per week. Based upon that number of 40,000, the high end, the loss of revenue given was roughly $1,800 weekly, and the monthly totals would roughly come to $7,200 a month. So if you're all of a sudden losing $7,200 a month because of this, yeah, you can see why he'd be pissed off, and you can see how that's an effective way to just kneecap somebody whose opinion you disagree with or who you're trying to get vengeance against.
Kotaku.
As far as I can tell,
same thing
in this regard isn't entirely against the First Amendment. I mean, we know that hate speech is protected. People can have their opinions. They can voice them in certain fashions. But if they are, in fact, using social media, not just Patreon, but Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc., to target this kind of attack on Maddox, you can see why this lawsuit is happening here. One of the other examples given here is that defendants have also had contests to stalk and harass Maddox. For instance, defendants held a billboard contest wherein defendant Herrera asked his fans to send designs of a billboard to place near Maddox's home to harass him. Defendants have also
it's not to harass him, it's because it's fucking hilarious.
Whereby they incentivize their followers to dig up private information on plaintiffs or on Maddox or their family, business associates, to harass them and blackmail them with threats of revealing very private information, which defendants then released on their shows. And they have screenshots here. Unfortunately, like I said, we're not able to see these to look at them to verify. I'm not trying to get dox information, but just to if enough evidence is there to back the claim, this whole lawsuit's existence, I'd like to see it just to make sure that we know, as the public who are finding out about this publicly posted lawsuit can in fact get all the relevant data. Further, defendants Herrera and Kokonos have bought multiple targeted advertising campaigns on Reddit and Facebook targeting plaintiffs or Maddox followers directly and suggesting that Maddox's fans should unsubscribe from his podcast, which is just a dick move. For instance, as recently as September 2017, Herrera bought a targeted advertisement on Facebook targeting Maddox and their fans directly, suggesting that Maddox's followers should unsubscribe from his podcast. Likewise, defendants also created a fake advertising campaign against Maddox and paid for advertisements to circumvent being blocked by on plaintiff's sites or Maddox's sites. The process is relatively straightforward and easy to do. For instance, defendants may buy an advertisement on Facebook or Reddit to circumvent blocks by adding for a keyword or even interest that people follow. For example, if defendants target fans of Maddox, they can buy ads that only display to those who follow Maddox's Facebook page, which includes Maddox and their friends who want nothing to do with them. Here, Kokonos explains it himself and how they did it to plaintiff from the dictionary.
There we go.
And again, I can't bring it up to look at it, so it is kind of I guess you could say a listen and believe, but they wouldn't file this kind of lawsuit at this rate, this amount, if there wasn't
follow you to the ends of the earth.
Evidence that they had on hand.
Bitch boy.
Defendants do this specifically to harass plaintiffs and know how advertisements circumvent blocks.
Fuck you, I'm going after this chicken shit bastard who's running away.
Post.
Oh my god,
Additionally, Herrera is also using a caricature of plaintiff as the devil in his posters and advertisements to promote a live show he purportedly gave on October 13th, 2017, where he sold tickets for $20. You know, if that one right there is probably not going to go over very well, mostly because it's like, if it's just a caricature of somebody, that would still fall under the First Amendment.
Because that's the first time for this lawsuit, reading this, something absurd has been mentioned, right?
But it does kind of show you the motive here, that there was apparently a lot of bad blood between the two of them when they split last year, and where things have gone since then. And we know that...
Yeah, you know that if you did any research, you dipshit.
Very lucrative business.
Okay, how do I deal with this?
I do believe, and I'm not defending the statement here, but when Anita Sarkeesian essentially went to the United Nations to complain about people saying she sucks on the internet, she has made mention of the fact that there was a cottage industry that has sprung up around doing that, around criticizing her, which is not entirely inaccurate. There are people out there, myself included, who have criticized.
She created it by having a very public opinion, and you know this.
And that is what she would argue as a cottage industry. It is an expression of the First Amendment. It is an expression of our thoughts and our opinions and our feelings about certain things. We are protected.
This is Maddox doing the same thing, claiming that someone making fun of him, calling him a jackass and a liar and an idiot is harassment.
Whereas not illegal can be seen as harassment in Anita's eyes, as in this case would be Maddox's eyes. So let's jump over to the Patreon thing, because this is where I find it to be interesting. So it says here that Patreon's community guidelines state in pertinent part that bullying,
kicked them off the edge.
Hate speech.
Pretty nice.
Hate speech includes serious attacks on people based upon their race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, sex, gender, sexual orientation, age,
I know, we've been in
disability,
single combat now for a while.
And then for the nudity and pornography part, the glorification of rape and sexual violence is also not okay. Now that actually ties into something that Dick Masterson has written about on his website. So that's what they're trying to talk about here, is that Patreon is violating its own terms of service by not shutting this particular account down based upon the actions of the person who is running that account. Now, part of that, and I find this to be interesting, kind of recently they were kind of embroiled in their own controversy around this, with Lauren Southern, who was with Defend Europe over, I do believe, in Italy, and video showed her engaging in activism, trying to keep a refugee ship from coming in, and that was what kind of prompted Patreon to shut down her account, was because there was that difference between what is an activist and what is a journalist, and when does one kind of
stupid-ass Xbox fucking controls.
This would be, I would argue, probably a bit more on the needs to be looked at side than Lauren's. Well,
I killed one of you, so eat my ass.
An activist than a journalist, and I don't agree with her actions in that video. I can see why Patreon acted the way that it did, but compared to this, they're a bit hypocritical to keep that particular thing going. So it goes on to say people who can't use the Patreon. Because Patreon empowers people financially.
I know, just fill all the spots up. Go ahead. Undo all of my hard work just because I fucking didn't block that one halberd shot to the back.
Also went on to say that encouraging others to do the aforementioned harmful activities may be banned from using Patreon. So what they're trying to say through this lawsuit is that the Dick Show, by encouraging its listeners to go and harass Maddox and his girlfriend and try to dig up dox information on their family and their associates to run the billboard campaign,
Dick never did harassment.
And
you didn't tell them to dig up personal fucking information.
Of service, of which it appears to be absolutely ignoring. And that has been a big criticism that's been levied at Patreon as a result of the whole Lauren Southern thing and other aspects as well. And I remember in the early days of Gamergate, when people had Patreons, there was a big push trying to get our Patreon shut down. I know my Patreon was specifically targeted by Zoe Quinn in an attempt to get it to shut down. And Patreon looked at what I did and they go, oh, this dude's just mundane. Like, you know, it's no big deal. And they let it go.
You're definitely not a big deal.
But this is like, you know, not just I maybe said mean words on Twitter. This feels more organized and more coordinated through something that is a Patreon exclusive program. It goes on to say that Patreon has been notified of the defendant's harassment campaigns, rape threats, and on several occasions. However, they have yet to take down defendant Herrera's page and continue to receive a substantial amount of revenue from Herrera and other defendants herein. Patreon's lack of response when notified on at least 7 occasions that specific users were inciting followers to harass, stalk, submit racist content, advance rape and death threats directly to plaintiff Jane Doe, and even posting the threats to their pages as unconscionable and tantamount to being a willful participant in the threats and encouraging the harassment to continue for their own financial gain. And I think that's what's going to push Patreon to basically kill Dick Masterson's account. Mostly because what you have here is you've got them kind of caught now in this crossfire where Maddox is saying that Dick Masterson has has targeted him specifically. And from what we can see here, it does appear that may be legitimate. And then, of course, by going and doing this through his show, this exclusive to Patreon, then not going through the terms of service properly or honoring those terms of service properly, what we're seeing is they might be pressured through the thought of this particular lawsuit to then kill it, which would then cripple Dick Masterson pretty well. You start losing $18,000 a month, you're gonna feel that in your you're gonna feel that in your pocketbook. But it does say here that on or about January 16, 2017, Patreon was notified
you fucking hit the guy once. It's dead.
With information and documents, including Herrera's fans.
What do you do, just walk home by yourself now?
Doxing by his fans and targeted Twitter harassment. On January 18th, a follow-up email to Patreon was sent, whereby plaintiff again informed Patreon of Herrera's harassment and threats, saying here, Herrera attacked my girlfriend, private individuals I'm associated with, small business and companies I work with, disclosed my private finances on air, and even made fun of and disclosed mental health issues my family is dealing with. I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never seen anything like this. Please let me know if there's any other information I can provide. Thank you. Now, all Maddox is doing is asking Patreon to just uphold their own end. And it says here he provided another follow-up on January 26th.
Countered that.
And appears that he got nothing back from that. May 26th, he made another complaint about the escalation of harassment. And also with the release,
to be honest, I did
his
fuck that battle up. I do not deserve to be murdered.
Again, nothing there. June 29th, another email to make them aware of what's going on. On July 28th, contracted Patreon to make them aware.
You want to kill him? What the fuck, dude?
Maddox in person. One of Herrera's fans left a harassing message on the sign-up sheet that Plankton made of Comic-Con. Then some fan emailed the show to talk about the harassment. And it appears that he's been contacting them repeatedly, and they've done nothing.
I just need to take a fucking nap.
Which is weird because they kicked Lauren Southern off the platform for less.
For less than what?
Especially if he has
I wasn't listening to your
audio clips of what's being produced, and Comic-Con. Then some fan emailed the show to talk about the harassment. And it appears that he's been contacting them repeatedly and they've done nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because they kicked Lauren Southern off the platform for less.
For less.
Right?
She was blocking refugees from getting into a fucking country.
And submitted.
That's way different than making fun of some Armenian jackass.
And something that they do need
on the internet.
And jumping down here to page 34 of 53, we can see what Maddox is asking for from the defendants, which would be Herrera, Kokonos, Foundation Digital, and a few others, saying actual and compensatory damages in the amount in excess of $20 million, exemplary and punitive damages in an amount in excess of $20 million, attorney fees, costs, and interest in the amount to be determined by the court, that defendants immediately retract statements published and issue a comprehensive public apology towards plaintiffs. Remove and destroy said statements, photographs relative to Plankton's from their website, social media platforms, and any other advertisement or promotions that exist, and for such other relief than the court deems proper. So basically, hey, remove all the stuff.
You Assassin's Creed motherfucker.
$20 million. Additionally, he does go on here to talk about how he wants them to also pay back anywhere between, I think, $1 to $5 million for lost wages from the Harry's campaign. So there's a lot with that as well. He is asking for quite a bit here. And
dude, the Harry's thing is fucking Jesse's fault.
To an extent,
that's plain and goddamn proven and simple.
Could go the way of let's say Hulk Hogan and Gawker situation, whereas Maddox would be Hogan and the Dick Masterson would in fact be Gawker. Now here's what he's asking for when it comes to Patreon.
Oh god, this is distracting.
Wages from the Harry's campaign. So there's a lot with that as well. He is asking for quite a bit here, and so far from what I can tell, it does to an extent feel like this could go the way of let's say Hulk Hogan and Gawker situation, whereas Maddox would be Hogan and the Dick Masterson would in fact be Gawker.
How does that make any sense? Dick Masterson did something as egregious as basically stealing a fucking sex tape and then publishing it? Are you fucking retarded? Maddox claimed that Dick Masterson had a rape list, maintained a rape list, because he either planted it himself or he's too retarded to know what 8chan is. And anybody can make a board on it and say whatever the fuck they want and steal banners from a show. and put it up there like it's some official thing.
Now, here's what he's asking for
Weirdo.
when it comes to Patreon. Plaintiffs repeat, replead, and incorporate by reference each line in every allegation from paragraphs 1 to 215. By the way, we're on page 47 to 53 right now of this complaint. As set
Yeah, why are you reading it? You don't know what you're talking about, and you have no back information
about the amount of
on
money
any of this.
its creators generate. It has a top 50 list on its site, which indicates how much its creators are generated on a month-to-month basis. Defendants Herrera is one of Patreon's top earners, having grossed well over $250,000 since he began using the platform. Defendant Kokonos has also generated a significant amount of income from Patreon in excess of $25,000. There are 3 different fees on Patreon. Patreon takes 5%. Patreon payment processing fees representing the cost of moving funds from the creator's patrons to the creator balance. Also payout fees, the charge for moving funds from the creator balance to the creator's bank or PayPal account. Under
What
a
the hell happened to my
conservative
combo?
estimate, Patreon generated roughly $50,000 from the activities of defendants Herrera and Kokonos on their platform over the past year. Plaintiff Maddox has exchanged multiple emails with Jordan Cope of Patreon. Mr. Cope's position with Patreon is creator relations led, which is a position whereby Mr. Cope is tasked with assisting creators such as Maddox. Now, just to be on the side here, take a quick look. Maddox is in fact a Patreon user. So he does have a Patreon page here where he only has 56 patrons and makes
To his defense, he doesn't
$226
advertise it.
So some could argue, and this is just, some could argue that this is a ploy to boost this number by taking this number down.
That's
I don't know if
retarded.
that's true.
That's a bad
I
plan.
believe that there clearly is levels of vengeance assigned to this particular lawsuit, but vengeance that in essence feels legally valid.
Legally valid? You're a
civil suit,
fucking
so
maniac.
Make sure I correct myself there. So that's, you can argue that. In the emails provided to Mr. Cope, Maddox gave Mr. Cope numerous examples and information about how third parties were targeting and harassing Jane Doe through Maddox's,
That's why she has a restraining order against her,
rape
right?
and death threats. Further
You
in these
fat
emails, Maddox
neck-beard
thoroughly
fuck.
explains to Mr. Cope through numerous examples how defendants Herrera and Kokonos were using the Patreon platform to harass, target, intimidate, and threaten Maddox and Jane Doe to encourage their fans
outta
to do
here,
the
you
same,
pal
even
Britain,
offering
shithead.
incentives as bonus content to their
No,
fans for
not the
harassing and
fucking
targeting
way.
plaintiffs, or for providing private information on Maddox or his friends, family, or business associates, and to likewise
they're
destroy
fucking
Maddox's
gone.
Patreon. Now, I don't know, again, how recent this is. I don't know what his numbers were, so this could be an up and down thing. Again, I have no idea. But apparently, targeted harassment against this particular page feels like it's been something that's been brought up before. Maddox provided Mr. Cope with numerous examples of third parties targeting Jane Doe, threatening rape, and disclosing private information. Maddox also exchanged emails with Cope over the course of several months. Mr. Cope's reaction was usually that Patreon took these matters seriously, and he was sorry to hear about it, and that this information
to pick
would
up
be
my
passed
other
on to
fucking
Patreon's trust and
rune
safety
drop
team. Well,
from the
it
last
kind of
archives.
appears that Patreon's trust and safety
Before
team
it was
failed to
brutally
do their
murdered.
job, and that, again, also with Twitter, you put these trust and safety teams together when it comes to Silicon Valley, and nothing is ever
Yeah,
really
it was
good.
right around
So
here.
jumping down here to the end of the lawsuit, we basically come to relief requested on causes of action alleged against defendants Patreon and Jordan Cope. This is after everything he's talked about, this is what they want. Plaintiffs respectively request actual and compensatory damages in amounts of excess of $20 million against Patreon and Cope, punitive damages amounts in excess of $20 million, attorney fees, costs, interest, and amount to be determined by the court, statutory and injunctive relief under New York business law sections 349 to 350 in the Federal Trade Commission Act, including but not limited to the joint adjoining and ordering a Patreon to immediately and permanently take down and remove Herrera's Patreon account podcast page that the court enjoin and order. So essentially, that's what this whole thing is boiling down to. He wants
No? Oh, yeah. I thought you could do
everything
that.
here.
That
I said there's a
move
lot of
makes
stuff there.
no
Maddox wants
physical sense, but
this to be ruled on by a judge that Patreon
that's pretty
take
cool.
down this thing. And I get it. I totally get it. And based upon what I've read,
get it.
and I did
Like,
skip
I
over
totally
some
get
stuff.
it.
There's a lot
I
to
get
read
it.
here, and I'll be linked below in the video description. It does appear like the Dick Masterson show, the Dick Show, whatever, is in violation of Patreon's terms of service, far more than, let's say, Lauren Southern was.
That's
And that,
better than
like I
this.
said, she was taken down for less. I
guess,
myself have been targeted by social justice warriors a couple of years ago. These things happen. Sure. But I think that at this point, if you want my honest opinion, if this grows to
No,
be
I want
big
your fake
in terms
opinion.
of
I
the
want you to
pressure on
directly lie to
Patreon
me.
act,
That's what I'm watching
then the
this
Dick
for.
Masterson show will probably be taken
Is it
down.
still glowing?
If Patreon goes back to Maddox, if they respond, who knows if they're going to? I have no idea. I'm speculating here. Everything I've talked about today, a lot of it's speculation, you know, based upon what I've read. I would say that their lawyers would probably go back to them and say, okay, well, to remove us from this lawsuit, because we don't want to pay out $20 million if we get, you know, caught up in it. We'll just, how about this? How about we just settle to remove the page? And that's, I think, if anything, that is precisely what Maddox wants. He just wants this account taken down. He wants Dick Masterson creating the Dick Show gone. He wants it gone.
And you have no problem with that.
$20 million amount.
You fucking idiot. He wants to kill someone else's platform.
If they feel
you don't
that
see what's wrong with
within
that.
their better interest to just remove this, then I would suggest this. I would think this is probably going to be gone relatively quickly. Now, what I gather from bringing Patreon into this is that essentially with all the correspondence that Maddox made to Patreon about what he perceived as being targeted harassment from Dick Masterson and from his podcast and from the community and everything else, probably
community.
You know, say like it looks to me, in my opinion, that it's possible that they're protecting someone else's opinion because he's one of the top 50 earners and he's generating lots of revenue for the website. Now that is a theory. It is not a fact. I don't know this to be certain. Just the theory, just an opinion. I want to make that abundantly perfectly clear. And if that's the case, then again, I expect if enough pressure comes across it, then we'll see this whole thing just get completely destroyed. And
genius over here.
I don't quite know how I feel about that, to be honest with you. Like, looking at this whole case, looking at everything here.
Is it in between your legs? No.
I'm definitely on Maddox's side.
Yeah,
based
clearly.
upon what I've seen. I don't have all the evidence. I don't have all the information. I don't know their.
You didn't even try to get any of the evidence.
That Dick Masterson will in fact release his side of the story, and it will contradict everything that's there. So
he has been for a year in like 4 months.
You live in America and you can sue for whatever you want. These kind of lawsuits do take time to put together the information, and they need to have the money to get the lawyer, and they got to put it all together. So there is an element there that feels like, you know, they've spent their time doing their due diligence here. And based upon what I've read, it does come across like there's been, you know, you could call it just kind of ignorance on Patreon's part, or utter, you know, just ignorance on Patreon's part. And who knows? We'll have to wait and see what happens. Again, this video went way longer than I wanted it to be. I went through way more of this than I originally intended it to do.
And you also don't know shit, so it was utterly pointless.
When you do this job,
you fuck
when
off.
you are an internet personality like myself and many others are. Our actions have consequences, and if we engage in this level of trolling, it can easily migrate past the First Amendment into slander, libel, defamation, you know, and all of these other things that can then find ourselves in the crosshairs of a potential $20 million lawsuit. And if you think for any moment that Dick Masterson might walk away from this unscathed, I would like to remind you, Gawker is no more. For not the exact same stuff, but for very similar things. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Gawker judgment might weigh heavily if this ever goes to court and it's used as an argument. And that is something to consider. So I have a feeling this won't ever go to trial. I have a feeling this will be more probably settled than anything else. But if I had to take if I had to gamble on it, I would say that the Dick Masterson Patreon is probably not long for this one.
Hey guys, that wraps up this video. If you'd like
to
leave a comment, please do so below. I love to read your guys' input. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really does help me in the YouTube algorithm. If you want to
I'm going to hit the thumbs down button. Thank you for reminding me that exists. Bitcoin.
And if you're bored and you want something else to watch, check out 3 Buck Theater up here. My name is Fatt Jabro. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a wonderful day. Peace out.
Yeah, get raped. Alright, let's see what else you got up your sleeve, buddy. More Amazon ads, of course.
Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store. Affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is the Mundane Matt channel. And oh man, Lena Dunham is a person who I'm just not a fan of. Just not a fan whatsoever. I think she's done a lot of deplorable things in her life, especially her autobiography from a couple of years ago, where she described almost in great detail ways that she would mess with her sister and do some inappropriate things around her sister. And of course, when she was called out for this, when this was criticized, her response was basically to mimic our current president and say hashtag fake news. Though in this case, it simply was not. This was in her own writing. In her own autobiography. So we already know this kind of stuff. Anyway,
why not?
Recently, Hollywood has been rocked by scandal after scandal after scandal concerning sexual predators. Harvey Weinstein, Louis C.K., Kevin Spacey, Sylvester Stallone was accused the other day. A number of actors
not Sly.
have had these accusations levied against them. Currently, I'm waiting for Tom Hanks, because you know that one's going to be bad.
Tom Hanks.
Hundreds of children's bodies in a well somewhere.
We don't know this.
Tom Hanks. I'm kidding. He's a saint. The point is, though, there's been all these accusations that have been made, and when these accusations come out, it is almost completely taboo to defend those people. Because nobody wants to, and this is in Hollywood,
unnecessary.
Nobody wants to go against
unnecessary
the
roughness,
that
96.
women could possibly lie about these accusations. Never mind the fact that I personally cover multiple stories every single year concerning these kind of false accusations. And the reason why I do so, friends, is not because I'm trying to cast doubt over whether or not somebody has been assaulted or not. Because I want there to be truth in these accusations, and I want people to get the proper justice, and that requires going through a court of law. And so when these things are called out, they need to be, to show that if you are a false accuser, there are consequences to your actions. Sadly, with the whole Harvey Weinstein situation and hashtag #MeToo, that's going to be really, really freaking murky going forward, which is why the situation with Lena Dunham is just so damn funny. So according to Vanity Fair, Lena Dunham released a statement supporting girls writer accused of sexual assault. Oh, that's right. That is correct. Lena Dunham, Miss, and I just want to kind of point this out right here. Miss, things women do lie about, what they ate for lunch. Things they don't lie about, rape.
Oh shit, dude.
She wrote that
fucking whirlwind barbarian over here.
months ago. Just so we're clear. 3.5 months ago, before the Harvey Weinstein thing broke, by the way, this came out. And then here we are. Life comes at you fast. Hashtag So it says here that actress Aurora Perrineau, if I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize, has accused writer Murray Miller of assaulting her when she was 17. And this is Lena Dunham, now looking like she's trying out for the next Hunger Games movie. Sexual assault and misconduct accusation floodgates have been blown open in Hollywood, and almost every day for the last month and a half has seen new accusations brought against men in the industry. This week, actress Aurora Perrineau, who had a role in last year's Passengers, alleged that girl screenwriter Murray Miller raped her in 2012 when she was just 17. She told The Wrap that she filed a report with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department on Friday, and the publication obtained the results of her September polygraph test in which she described the incident. According to the actress, she and a group of friends met Miller at a party at the Standard Hotel, where she repeatedly told him she was 17, and Miller asked them for a ride home because he'd been drinking. When they got to his house, everyone got out of the car, and Perrineau reluctantly followed. At some point, she says, I woke up in Murray's bed naked. He was on top of me having sexual intercourse with me. At no time did I consent to any contact with Murray. Murray's legal team provided a statement to the reporters in which they unequivocally deny the allegations. Mr. Miller is categorically and vehemently denies the outrageous claims. After being contacted several weeks ago by lawyers who, on Miss Perrineau's behalf, sought substantial monetary damages from him, Mr. Miller's legal team gathered overwhelming evidence directly contradicting these false and offensive claims. Now remember, before we get into the Lena Dunham part of this, listen and believe is the name of the game. Listen and believe is absolutely the narrative here. Never question it, never deny. And if you can't outright deny, then apologize. Fall on your sword and hope that in a couple of years you can kind of Mel Gibson your way back into Hollywood, right? And if you think that's not really possible, Daddy's Home 2 is out right now, and Mel Gibson's one of the leads in that. So it just gives you an idea of how this kind of thing can be, how your career can come back to you in an amount of time, provided you've paid your penance well enough. And that's essentially where we are with this sort of thing. So this guy coming out and denying it, that's a pretty bold step. because we haven't seen much of this. There's been such a big fear of denying the claims, because remember, things women do lie about, what they had for lunch. Things women don't lie about, rape. Just saying. Linda Dunham's words herself.
Well, I guess he's done
Women
with me.
never lie about rape.
I don't know how to kill him with a fire around.
UVA and Jackie, that never happened. Right? That whole controversy never happened. So it says here that Friday night, girl showrunners Lena Dunham and Jenny Connor also released statements to THR in which they also denied the accusations against Miller, saying that Paramount statement is one of the 3% of assault cases that are misreported every year. Right? You gotta love that. Right? You gotta love that. It's such a deflection of it from right there. Well, only 3% of like RAIN statistics are that. Funny thing about RAIN statistics when it comes to, you know, the study they cited didn't ask women whether or not they had been assaulted, but it was whether or not they feared they might be assaulted. And so they chose to take that line of questioning and turn that into a very widely shared statistic that is not accurate in the slightest. So not whether or not they've been assaulted, it's that they fear they might be assaulted. And don't get me wrong, there is valid fear at times. Absolutely. But it's not just, you know, women that feel that fear. Man, I walk home by myself sometimes through some parts of Los Angeles, and I'm like, I'm gonna die.
Oh shit!
You know what I mean? It happens. Everyone can feel that fear, but that was the statistic that they used, which is scary when you think about it. It's just scary how much that's pushed out there, and how she's saying it here. Now she goes on to say, this is her statement. During the windfall of deeply necessary accusations over the last few months, oh my god, deeply necessary accusations, right? But this is one of the 3% that are false, but deeply necessary accusations. I'm not saying that Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Louis C.K. at all are good people and that they haven't done scummy things, period. But necessary accusations is just a hilarious term for me to hear, because these accusations should have gone to the police. Let's just be fair about that. But no, they're necessary accusations.
Go.
We have been thrilled to see so many women's voices heard and dark experiences in this industry justified. It's a hugely important time of change, and like every feminist in Hollywood and beyond, we celebrate. Unless it's your friend. And then you deny. Hey, listen, Lena, denial, not just river and eat. But during every time of change, there are also instances of the culture in its enthusiasm and zeal taking down the wrong targets. Oh,
come on, man.
Finally, somebody says it. That's not something you would have heard a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
I guess
there's someone here that she likes, is what you're hearing.
A fire, come on.
It never would have come out against Harvey Weinstein. This accusation never would have come out against,
Weinstein.
Or this statement never would have been made against Kevin Spacey or Louis C.K. or, you know, many of the other people, Jeremy Piven, for example. These are
Jeremy
statements
Piven, no,
that you would never hear in regards to those actors, because Linda Dunham,
oh good God,
doesn't like him, I guess. But we believe, having worked closely with him for more than half a decade, this is the case with Murray Miller. While our first instinct is to listen to every woman's story, our insider knowledge of Murray's situation makes us confident that sadly this accusation is one of the 3% of assault cases that are misreported every year. It's a true shame to add that number, as outside of Hollywood, women still
Veterans
struggle to be believed. We stand by Murray, and that's all we're saying about this issue. Let me just one more time bring this up here. Things women don't lie about. Great. But 3%. Right. She says here, going further a little bit down here, something else, 10% of all rape allegations are false. She says the actual number, while hard to track, is much closer to 3%. Much lower numbers than any other typically reported crime. But she says here in her own words, the actual number, while hard to track, is 3%. Based upon also faulty RAIN statistics, but then again, hard to track. So she's trying to diminish that down. Oh, it's not 3%. It's probably more like 1-2%.
Let's just,
you know, 0.5% tops.
This guy.
That's what she's trying to say there. But now she's got in a situation where she's playing that number as if it's real. She's playing that number as if it's factual. She's playing that number as if it's the default. Never mind, again, faulty statistics. So Dunham and Connor's response drew backlash on social media on Friday, as many girls' viewers wondered why the pair, whose show often put young female characters at its forefront, would enter the conversation in such a manner. Perrineau's mother, Brittany Perrineau, denied ever asking Miller for monetary damages. At no point have we
all you
asked
do is
Miller
just read fucking articles, man.
So we don't quite know. We don't quite know everything about this.
Then why are you
in that
commenting
case.
on it, you sack of shit?
But if his lawyers are saying that they're trying to mount a legal defense for him, and that they unequivocally deny all the allegations, and that they are in fact trying to seek monetary gain, it's possible that the lawyer representing the actress is the one making the claim as a hopes of trying to get a settlement. And in many cases, I would argue that the goal here is in fact to get a settlement. Because if it happened in 2012, it's going to be very hard to prove, because there's no police report, there's no rape kit, there's none of those things that could be tied to him via DNA, unless somehow they found, you know, residue behind an Arby's, you know, from like 1990 or something.
Oh, come on.
But the point there is
I'm gonna
that they're not
blow
able
your
to
asses
actually
up.
track this. So the best course of action would be to get a settlement.
Definitely a revenant.
Make him fearful enough of his career, fearful enough of his future, that he
You're on
pays him
fire.
$1 well. That's what you're going to see out of Lara. And it's unfortunate, because we should never be in these positions. This is not something that should ever be taken lightly. And if you come at it from a settlement perspective, trying to get money into someone right away, your motivations, your intentions are
Oh, cool, another one.
But the hypocrisy here is more from Lena Dunham saying that women would never, absolutely ever, under any circumstances, fight. Sure, how much what they had for lunch, how much they weigh, you know, the truth behind their Tinder profile, those are all up for debate. But that, no, never. Except for 3%. Especially for the 3% that might impact one of their friends.
We'll
just
take you to pieces and leave
funny,
you for the ground.
It's just a little bit funny. Because it's Lena Dunham wrapped in a nutshell. And also her entire side of how they are. No, it's completely believable. Until it isn't, because it's about someone that I like.
Oh, shit.
Hey guys, that wraps up this video. If you'd like to leave a comment, please
shill.
do so below. I love to read your guys' input. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really does help me in the
Shilling.
YouTube algorithm. If you want to support the channel, there's the Amazon affiliate store, there's PayPal, there's Patreon, there's Bitcoin. And if you're bored and you want something else to watch, check out 3 Buck Theater up here. My name is Fatt Jabro. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a wonderful day. Peace out.
Douche. 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 Oh, you can't block that shit? X. Oh god, I almost hit the Super Nintendo X. Just do it every fucking time. Get the fuck out of here. Okay. I need regrouping. Okay, we got where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh. Shit. That's perfect. Get in there. Oh my god.
You're surrounded. You don't stand a chance.
Stop wasting my time. Fucking Ed Osner. What the fuck, man? Yeah, I hit the fucking triangle button, man, to deflect that shit. Nothing happened. Great. Yeah, well, I'm gonna... What the hell? Just got life back? What the fuck did I do? You wanna climb down instead of up? Oh my god. Get your ass down. Dude, why is the camera in my fucking back like it's armored fucking core over here?
You're in my sights.
Back for more! Oh yeah? This dipshit fucking arrows. That move sucks cocks. Just won't fucking dodge it. Why? Jesus Christ. Oh my god. Come on. Combo. Do it. The HPs, bruh. God, no. This fucking... The guy's way too many combat moves. Fuck you,
Not a bad
Jarbo.
habit, this.
I'm gonna kick your ass, buddy. You just wait. I'm gonna put on the follow-up video to Jarbo's Lena Dunham shield video, but the whole point of MimeoKast is I just listen to shit and I don't feel like commenting on it or talking shit while playing a game because I'm too tired or just not in the mood for it. But apparently Mundane Matt was a bad choice, so I just want to yell at the guy.
Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store.
No.
Affiliate link below.
I'm not turning off
Hey,
the
what's
pesky
going on,
ad
everybody?
block
My
either.
name is Matt Jarbo. This is the Mundane Matt channel. And a couple days ago, Lena Dunham hit the news because she actually came out and defended one of the girls' writers, a man by the name of Matthew Murray, from allegations of sexual assault from a 17-year-old girl 5 years ago. So she came out and was like, whoa, 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 hold on, never happened, never happened. And it was interesting because many people, especially myself, were like, this is unlike her, who, you know, had claimed just a few months earlier that women never ever lie about these sort of things, that there's no reason to. It's not as simple as lying about what you had for lunch. This is a simple, or this is a serious accusation. Why would they lie?
She wrote
about
that in a
it?
tweet.
Of course, she
All
comes out
tweets
and
are
defends her
retarded.
friend. So
You tweet
the
a lot,
backlash
Mundane Matt. You should
from
know this.
the always self-cannibalizing
I'm going right back to
left
this guy. Fuck
was
this
basically
shit.
one of, how you turn on us, Lena Dunham? And they got super mad at her. So Lena, realizing that her power level as a you know, prominent feminist in Hollywood was starting to wane, backtracked on her defense of a friend and apologized over it. This again, this is how you know you can. This is how you know how Hollywood is. Not just Hollywood, people in general, right? Like, I'm gonna defend you until I can't,
Oh, what the fuck
because
am I?
people will be
Why am
mad
I
at me.
walking
They'll
all the
be
way?
mad at me, then I'm gonna be in some trouble. So I'm just run away now, because that's what they do, right? Whereas a true friend would be like, look, I don't believe this happened. I still stand by my original principles that people normally wouldn't lie about this sort of thing, but I believe
I'll
that
save
this
your
never
ass.
happened. Because she did go on to clarify, just to be on the fair side. She did
You
go on to
are
say
welcome.
that there was, you know, about 3% of accusations are false.
I will think about it.
3%. And as I pointed out in my last video, that 3% number tends to come from a very
fucking
controversial RAIN study
ASAP.
where they asked women if you've ever, not so much if you've ever been assaulted, or you've ever had, if you've had the fear of assault. And that's where they took their number from, was the fear of getting assaulted, never actually have been. So it's one of those things where you're just like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I want to give her, you know, the fairness to say that she did try to summarize it as being one of the 3% of claimed false accusations made. Never mind.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, non-verbal, vulnerable.
So there's that. So it says here that Lena Dunham has backed down and apologized for defending girls rider Murray Miller. I'm sorry, I said Matthew Murray. I was wrong. It's Murray Miller. Who was being investigated for sexually assaulting actress Aurora Perrineau when she was 17 years old. Dunham issued a long tweet on Friday supporting Miller, adding Girls executive producer Jenny Connor's name as another ally of his, saying, "We believe, having worked closely with Miller for more than half a decade, that this is the case.
Don't have feelings.
That this is the case with Murray Miller." Well, our first instinct is to listen to every woman's story. Our insider knowledge of Murray's situation makes us confident that, sadly, this accusation is one of the 3% of assault cases that are misreported every year. After withering criticism, Dunham has had a change of heart. Again, you have to love that right there. After withering criticism, Lena Dunham had a change of heart. This is not like the Grinch who stole Christmas.
What the
all
fuck?
Of a sudden, her heart rose 10 sizes.
Dude, this
that
isn't a
day.
fucking wrestling
this is a
match.
situation of, oh man, people are not liking what I said here. I'm a backtrack. I'm a backtrack on this, and then double down on the narrative that everyone else is running with. You know, the listen and believe narrative. Because remember, like I said, the self-cannibalizing
this guy's a
left
fucking punk-ass bitch
is
with
led
the melee
by
attacks.
a very ferocious yet feral pack of feminists. So you have that.
You're not playing by the rules, man. I can turn on the prompts to know how to deal with your fucking bullshit.
As feminists, we
and that guy is fucking cheap-shotting bullshit.
Is the first choice we make every single day when we wake up. I would probably
you are
think
just
the first choice you make
son of a
is
bitch, you Winston Churchill-looking motherfucker.
Check Twitter. I'm gonna probably go with the Twitter one since most of you are narcissists. Therefore, I never thought I would issue a statement publicly supporting someone accused of sexual assault, but I naively believed it was important to share my perspective
this man eats
on my
grass, and I
situation,
can't find any.
as it has transpired behind the scenes over the last few years. Now I understand that was absolutely the wrong time to come forward with such a statement, and I am so sorry. We have been given the gift of powerful voices, and by speaking out, we are putting our thumb on the scale, and it was wrong. We regret this decision with every fiber of our being. No. You shouldn't regret apologizing for your friend. If you don't think your friend did it, and you have intimate knowledge of your friend for half a decade, which is a long time to know a person, and you believe that they didn't do it, then come out and say, I don't think this happened. There's nothing wrong with defending your friend. There is nothing wrong with that. All right? This is... loyalty is like thicker than blood and water, basically. You know what I mean? And in your industry, in our industry, because we're kind of part of the same one overall, loyalty is a hard thing to get. It doesn't really happen. It doesn't. One of the reasons why people support Donald Trump, those who have kept with him for all these years, and that are fiercely loyal, is he's loyal back to them. He views loyalty above many other things and will defend somebody based upon loyalty. That is one of the reasons why he has who he has around him, and why people are willing to kind of, take those hits for loyalty. Not saying it's right, not saying that the evidence doesn't kind of speak for itself in some cases, but I'm just saying there's a reason. But if you have intimate knowledge of this person, of this potential situation, and everything else, and you believe that it's one of the 3% of false cases made every single year, then stand by it. Don't wither criticism and then have it change.
No, I was holding up, because it's, towards the guy that I actually wanted to execute.
Admitting your own brand of assault. Never mind your own autobiography about what you wrote about your sister, which you got mad that people got mad at and then tried to downplay it. I'm just saying, you're a one-trick pony. And people know you're a one-trick pony, and as a result of that, you've had a lot of people call you out recently. It's pretty funny. So it says here, every woman who comes forward deserves to be heard fully and completely, and our relationship to the accused should not be part of the calculation anyone makes when examining her case. Every person and every feminist should be required to hear her. Under patriarchy, I believe you is essential. Until we are all believed, none of us will be believed. We apologize to any women who have been disappointed. I love this. I love that you're subtracting... You're trying to separate womanhood from humanhood. I love that. I love that. Well, under patriarchy, if one of us aren't believed, then none of us are believed. That's not, again.
All right, Mr. Churchill, you want to get your ass back here?
Going to the police, due process, all of these things. MATTER, Lena, they matter. They matter heavily, actually. And if you believe
I think I got that guy
your friend
kicking the
didn't
teeth,
do it,
too.
which you clearly state by this, by the way. You're not apologizing for believing your friend, because you still clearly believe your friend, and you still clearly don't
You're really
believe
gonna
the actress
inspire
who's
all
accusing
kinds
him
of
of assault 5 years ago. You clearly
on, no, grab
are
the
apologizing
thing.
for that. You're just apologizing for voicing it publicly. And maybe you're not wrong for that, to be perfectly bluntly honest. Maybe you're not wrong. But I'm a person who does believe in loyalty. I'm a person who does believe in striving for the truth.
Who's the guy I'm chasing, man?
And if I know my friend well enough to know that they didn't do this, then I would stand by them through thick and thin. I would voice my support publicly. I would voice my support loudly. I would use that megaphone that I have to do so. And the reason why I would do that has everything to do with the fact
escaped my
that
ass.
I would want more people to question the narrative.
Just use that
I would
word.
want more people to trust but verify. I'd want more people to not listen and believe. When you sit there and you say that by default, we believe you, then you are essentially saying that 3% number you accused this woman of being a part of simply does not exist. You are retracting that statement while not retracting your belief that your friend didn't do nothing and he a good boy. This is what's going on, Lena. This is why people are giving you crap. But it's pretty funny because it's just this is the world you have created. By the way, I feel like you should now be carrying around a mattress because that's your next protest. Anyway, Sergeant Salvador Rios of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department told Deadline that Paramount has filed a sexual assault complaint against Miller at its West Hollywood station. The case will be turned over to LAPD for an investigation. Through his lawyers, Miller has denied the accusation, saying here, Mr. Miller categorically and vehemently denies Mrs. Parent's outrageous claims. After being contacted several weeks ago by lawyers who, on Ms. Parent's behalf, sought substantial monetary damages from him, Mr. Miller's legal team gathered overwhelming evidence directly contradicting these false and offensive claims. Only after her demands for money were rebuffed did Ms. Parent go to the police. Mr. Miller looks forward to sharing this evidence and information with any and all authorities seeking truth in this matter.
We have so much time.
That's his stance. He didn't do it, and he has evidence to back it up. So what's the play here? If he has evidence saying he didn't do it, he can claim he's got evidence that didn't do it, and then thereby forcing her to go to the police. But, you know, if she did contact him and they have any actual, you know, paper trail of trying to get a substantial amount of money or any kind of extortion out of it, so to speak, that's going to be very bad, again, for these claims. But when I bring up the subject of Lena Dunham, which is what this video is about, and to show you the backlash that happens when she chose to speak out, because this, again, is this toxic community that she herself has been a part of. What we see here is that a writer for Lena's feminist newsletter has quit after the actress publicly defended a former girls writer. Saying here that writer Zinzi Clemens announced she can no longer write for Lenny Letter. In addition to citing Lena Dunham's response to Aurora Perrinau's claim that Murray Miller assaulted her in 2012 when she was only 17, she also accuses that Lena Dunham is racist. Oh my God, this is funny. A feminist that's
we all do it.
Ooh, like I haven't seen that before. Saying here that Lena and I ran in the same circles in college. Girl star Jemima Kirk was in my year at RISD while I was at Brown. We had many mutual acquaintances and still do. Most of these acquaintances were like Lena, wealthy, with parents who are influential in the art world. They had a lot of power and seemed to get off on simultaneously wielding it and denying it. And that is actually a very fair statement about Lena Dunham. That she does get off on wielding power, but then also acting like she doesn't have it.
Almost 4.
Right? The entire that right there actually is pretty much, it summarizes the entirety of the show, where you have affluent white women living in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, the hipster capital of Brooklyn, and acting like woe is me, and they all come from relatively wealthy parents. Right, it's like it shows you it's white privilege, the TV show, or as the old when it first premiered, it was Nepotism, the TV show, as one of the mock-up posters, because everyone there was all related to somebody famous, right? Allison Williams played Marnie on the show. Her father is Brian Williams from MSNBC. Josiah Mamet, her father is David Williams, playwright. You know, Lena Dunham, her father is Carol Dunham, notorious vaginal artist. You know, these are like, you know, very, very, very wealthy, influential people that have their kids that are, in, you know, trying to play like
you interrupted your own attack with a taunt.
20-somethings living in hipster
Shitbag.
Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It's one of those things. This very much summarizes all of that, which is one of the reasons why I'm very believing of what Zinzi
didn't mean to do that, but
because Lena's actions have very much backed up that statement. She says here, back in college, I avoided those people like the plague because of their well-known racism. I'd call their strain hipster racism, which typically uses sarcasm as a cover, and in the end, it looks a lot like gaslighting. It's just a joke. Why are you overreacting? Is a common phrase of these kind of statements.
Well, there's fire down here. It's
funny because I think any comedian, anyone makes a joke will make a bad joke, and then they might say it was just a joke. Why are you overreacting? So there's a bit of back and forth there. But she says here, in Lena's circle, there was a girl who was known to use the N-word in conversation in order to be provocative. And if she was ever called on it, she would just say it's a joke. I was often with the same room as her, but I never spoke to her, only watched her from afar in anxiety and horror. See, that's when she goes in the full SJW mode right there. But what we see here is a fallout from Lena Dunham. And with any luck, hopefully the end of her being on that pedestal of feminism, because we see a lot of that with her. She inserts herself in these situations, flaunts the fact that she's a feminist around, uses it as a way to promote her brand, promote her book, promote her show, whatever, and then kind of falls back on some criticism, goes away for a while, finds another active cause to be a part of, pushes that rinse, cycle, repeat. This is what Lena Dunham does, and now Lena Dunham is being called out for it. Now, the self-cannibalization from the left is something that I do like to watch. As a person who is left-leaning myself, I look at this and I'm like, good. Get rid of the extremists, call out the BS and the corruption, and let's get back to actually having discussion about where to go. You know, progressivism effectively has been completely tanked by these types of people, these quote-unquote hipster racists, if you will, because they have taken that mindset and they've twisted it to fit their own narrative. Very similar to how conservatives are dealing with that on the far right. It's just, you know, total shoe theory in motion, essentially. But at least now we get to see her twist in the wind, and hopefully she'll come out, you know, and apologize for her racism, fall on her sword, and succumb herself to her own group's cannibalization.
The one you got fucking upgraded?
Hey guys, that wraps up this video. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so below. I love to read your guys' input. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really does help me in the YouTube algorithm. If you want to support the channel, there's...
I don't fucking vomit. Maybe I'll just put on, until I kill this motherfucker, I'll just put on some more Mundane Matt and shut my fucking mouth.
YouTube has continued to attack alternative media by demonetizing most of our videos. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit our Amazon store or our Patreon page. Links below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jabro. This is the Mundane Matt channel, and it is actually with a heavy heart that I report on this news. It's not something I expected to see. It's not something I anticipated would ever happen, and the fact that it did is quite saddening. As you can see here, we're looking at a Medium post from Warren Schaefer, the co-founder of VidMe, saying goodbye for now. VidMe has come a long way as an independent platform, but we couldn't find a path to sustainability. We're building something new. Now, the reason why this is a blow to the creator community right now is because YouTube has had a horrible 2017. It feels like the walls are closing in around everybody. It feels like they're strangling the lifeblood of the community in order to continuously work with people like the large corporations. And they said, screw it to the creators. And then you have a website called VidMe that allowed YouTubers to copy their videos over to the platform, to build a new audience, to go from there. And many people in the commentators, skeptic, ranter, whatever side of YouTube did attempt to make their way over there in order to help bring over an audience. But the problem, and I'll be bluntly honest with you, is it's really hard to serve two masters when it comes to this stuff. It's really hard to have a presence on multiple platforms. Now, people like Dave Cullen, man, he hit that hard. And I gave him massive credit for always being on like the trending page on VidMe. You know, he very much supported the site, and I'm sure this is going to have some impact on him, you know, and everything else. And I had trouble with it myself just because I produce so much content on YouTube, and I didn't feel that VidMe provided me the ability to manage my time appropriately. Meaning, if I wanted to copy a video over, I could do it, but then it would automatically publish it. I couldn't private it, so then I could add the thumbnail and then schedule out a release. I couldn't automate things like to what worked for me. The way that I can with YouTube and other social media platforms. So I just found myself not using it. However, I was always wholly supportive of the platform as a competitor to YouTube, especially this year. And maybe, you know, maybe part of it, well, no, I'll take responsibility. You know, me being a champion of it, but then also still not actively using it is a bit hypocritical, right? But at the same time, everyone here, we all run our own businesses. We are trying to sustain and live our lives, and we have to go where the money is. We have to go where the audience, where the crowds are, where the platform is, and that is YouTube. That wasn't VidMe yet, but everyone is hoping that they would get there. Everyone is hoping that they would be able to figure it out, and for the most part, it felt good, like they were on the right track. Especially a few months ago when it came out that they received $6 million in funding, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, man, they're working on it," but this is a goddamn shocker. So it says here that after careful consideration, the VidMe team has arrived at the difficult decision to suspend VidMe's site and apps effective December 15th at noon Pacific Standard. We'll use this blog post to explain what this means for users, how we got here, and what's next for us. Now what this means is that there's no new signups. Existing videos will be playable and exportable until December 15th, otherwise they will be permanently deleted. All paid channel subscriptions will be suspended immediately, and subscriber-only videos will be exclusively accessible by their video owners. So that's, yeah, if you had like a subscription-based channel on there, which I know people who do, you're going to have to go get that taken care of. All VidMe paid subscriptions will cease as of today, and subscribers will no longer be billed. So at least they're cutting it off now and not trying to hold it till the end to squeeze any few more shekels out of people. So that's good on them. It says here why we started VidMe. Yeah, we started VidMe in 2014 with the mission of helping the next generation of entertainers find their audience and earn a living. Again, I do always feel that VidMe was created with the best of intentions. It wanted to be a kind of competition to YouTube, and this is a year where we desperately need it. And maybe we should have been more weary of what would happen this year on YouTube. 2016 for many YouTubers was like the golden year. It was a great year for earnings and growth and everything else. 2017 has been a mess. We were all hoping that it would get fixed. In some ways it has, in other ways it's gotten worse, but VidMe was a good alternative, just not big enough. And in an age when YouTube needs that alternative, it just, you know, it's really hard for an underdog to get out there. So it says, at the time, YouTube was the only major platform that provided revenue sharing, a system that often neglected creators with small or niche audiences. We are confident we create a new type of video platform, one that was more community-oriented, more transparent, and more equitable to creators. Inspired by Reddit's crowd curation, we also saw an opportunity to improve the experience for both viewers and curators by allowing the community to surface trending content. Given the large market opportunity, video ad spend was $84 billion in the US alone, and the impending shift from linear television viewing towards digital video, we believed that we could create a sustainable platform to accomplish these goals. And it's a lofty goal, but it does feel like it's one that is not out of the realm of possibility. You know, it does feel like that, but again, it's just the audience, man. Getting the audience there, the sustainability aspect of it, that's hard. Because that is where VidMe ultimately lies. Like, we have an alternative, come to the alternative, but bring your audience here. That becomes, you know, difficult when you really start breaking it down. A few people might go over, but unless there's a massive incentive, it becomes, you know, it becomes a huge thing. So jumping down a little further, it says what we learned and why we're moving on to something new. Although we still believe that the world would greatly benefit from a creator-first video platform, we weren't able to find a path to financial sustainability. Here are the major obstacles we encountered in our attempts. And I like this. This is going to give us a little bit of insight into what happened, which ultimately I think would benefit everyone, just for future platform creators, or just us to kind of look at the insides of this and to understand more about it. Monetizing user-generated content is increasingly challenging. Advertisers want to target specific audiences, which means a new platform that doesn't store troves of personal data is at a severe disadvantage relative to Facebook and Google, which combined control 60% of online ad spending in the US. Yeah, and they mentioned that $84 billion earlier. There's a lot of money at stake here. Most advertisers want their ads to complement brand-safe content. Unfortunately, this is a subjective designation, which is difficult to define and enforce. Content, therefore, must be thoroughly reviewed and moderated, an expensive prospect. As YouTube recently learned with the adpocalypse, even a single, poorly moderated video can result in a PR disaster and undermine advertiser trust. Exactly. Few advertisers are willing to negotiate direct deals with platforms that don't have enormous scale, meaning ad revenue rates are lower for newer platforms. In turn, there's less overall revenue to be shared with creators, which means creators are less likely to support newer platforms for a sustainable period of time. And that is a big part of a lot of this kind of stuff. It's when you have got to sustain it, and it's like you're trying to find those whales that will keep it coming in, but they have specific restrictions and you know, or they have specific criteria, or they just want the numbers. Ultimately, it's eyeballs on screen, I believe, is what a lot of advertisers want. They know that not everyone's going to buy their product, but they still want them to see it. So it really is going to go where the enormous scale is, and that's ultimately what we've kind of seen here. Now, it says here, although we introduced direct fan patronage as an additional business model, the profit margin was insufficient to cover the high costs of storing and delivering video. That's the whole thing with YouTube. When Google basically kind of like owns most of the damn internet, they know where to store it. Storing and delivering video is becoming less expensive, but remains extremely costly. Videos are often massive files, and making them globally available at any time is expensive. YouTube sold to Google just 18 months after launching, partly because of YouTube's high burn rate, and to this day, it's still likely operating at a loss. And keep in mind, too, just as a point of reference, in the overall pie chart of Google's profits, or which companies make the most money for Google, YouTube ain't number one, even though it's the most popular website on the internet. It's like 6th or something, or it makes only 6% of their income. It's a very small amount. When we launched in 2014, we projected that infrastructure costs would decline due to increased competition in the CDN and data storage industries. While marginal prices have fallen dramatically over the past few years, our aggregate costs still outpaced our ability to generate meaningful income, or meaningful revenue. And again, this is probably a big part of why the subscription-based service part of it, would be so good for them. It's like they would get a slice of that, which if they get enough slices, it could equal a whole pie, and then they're able to sustain themselves while creators are still working. See, here's the thing. If VidMe would have benefited greatly from, I think, personally, finding brand managers to seek out creators, and not through and actually seek them out through YouTube or other places, and then work with them to bring in brands to for videos specifically to VidMe, and then they get their cut of that. Like they would get their 10 to 20% or something like that. And the reason why I say that is because that feels like the best way to get the kind of they get revenue. Eyeballs are on the screen, and then if there's an incentive because of brand deals that are paying out better than ad rates on YouTube, people might find themselves making more content there because that is going to be a potentially sustainable thing. There are many YouTubers out there that have brand managers that work for them, and they get a percentage of the deals. I myself have been contacted by a couple, never really gelled with anyone, but I am currently speaking with somebody right now. So the whole point there is like finding brand deals that everyone can benefit from. And that might have been something they could have looked at, or something if you are a creator trying to get into this game that you may want to look into. So it says the definition of scale has changed, and attracting audiences away from existing platforms is harder than ever. And this, again, this is a big part of it. Like I mentioned earlier, it's trying to bring those people over. A few might actually go, but for the most part, it's going to be difficult. Saying 8 of the 10 most popular apps are owned by Google and Facebook. Both companies also have major apps that continually pull users back into their networks, which is very, very, very true. You see Facebook here has 81% of penetration of the app audience, followed by YouTube at 71%. Then Facebook Messenger is 68%, and Facebook Messenger and Facebook app go hand in hand. Google Search, you know, Google Maps, Instagram, Snapchat. I mean, look at all this. Google Play, Gmail, Pandora. You know, I mean, there's a lot there. I'm actually really surprised that Pandora is number 10, to be honest with you. You figure Spotify would have been higher up on that deal. So it says, many creators with millions of subscribers on YouTube and Facebook were initially attracted to VidMe's model, but faced difficulty transitioning their audiences from their home platforms. Convincing people to use and keep using a new platform is hard, leaving many creators locked in. Both Facebook and YouTube also actively depreciate content shared from competing platforms. VidMe's social traffic dropped markedly once Facebook began to prioritize its native player, and that is true. Facebook trying to get into the whole game of this whole YouTube, or this whole video stuff, they really hate when you post a YouTube link. Like, it really is a thing. So that's something to consider. This is all true. I mean, this is all stuff I've watched, I've researched, and I've seen, and so it's even more disheartening that to see it printed from a company like VidMe. It's like, no, they admit, like, it got harder and harder and harder to reach out. Again, back to what I said with the brand manager, have those people contact YouTubers and try to establish like set content that would be only exclusively on VidMe, and do that. I mean, Netflix model works like that. They get the exclusive content. In order to bring people in, you had to give them an incentive. YouNow is doing this new stuff with cryptocurrency. They've got millions of dollars in cryptocurrency that they're going to be giving to creators in order to entice them to come over. That might have been something worth looking into. And I don't like YouNow, but I might end up over there if they offer a good enough deal, and they've been in contact with me. Without a massive captive audience already on the platform, new channels struggle to find immediate growth. As such, creators didn't remain active long enough for us to achieve sufficient network across channels. Lacking a critical audience size, we struggle to attract direct advertisers to offset our infrastructure costs, leaving few resources to spend on product innovation and attracting new audience. See, again, I think it would have been better off if they would have worked with the creators directly and like offered them incentives. Like, you work with us, you do this, maybe we'll offer you stock option, we'll offer you 1% or these stocks or whatever, or this incentive piece or whatever that would then have you, because this is a whole issue here too. And this it really does go out to other people that are working on these kind of platforms. You want to entice the people. You can't just sit there and say we're the YouTube alternative and then be like that. It's great in theory, and again, I was really rooting for these guys, but there were frustrations because there was no incentive for me. There was no incentive for me. It was like it's one of those things like go to Gab or go to Minds instead of Facebook or Twitter. The incentive there is the same to this. It's if it blows up, you're going to be in a good position. That's if they have the resources and the revenue to further, push it out there. And the creators or the influencers or the personalities that go to those other platforms, they have to then use their other social platforms to drive that information to their fan base to get them to go there. It becomes this system that after a while, when you're trying to manage Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Google or Snapchat or Instagram or whatever, it becomes so much to handle. And we don't have personnel to do this for us. If my full-time job was to operate Chris Raygun's social media profile, then I could be everywhere because that's how you do it. But it's not my job. My job is to run my channels, plural, and to run everything else. On top of the rest of my life, it just became this big problem. I'm explaining all this for the perspective of trying to let people know, like, this is one of the reasons why this stuff kind of failed to connect in the way that it did. And again, I feel really bad, but this is a truth worth knowing in this particular situation. Now it says, although we raised venture funding so we could initially operate at a loss while we grew VidMe's audience, the competitive market changed dramatically over the last 2 years. Most notably, Facebook and Instagram began aggressively soliciting video content and courting video creators, which led YouTube to redouble its efforts to attract and retain creators. Yet not this year, though. See, that was the thing. This year, it all went to hell. This year would have been the time to, like, think outside the box for how to entice creators. And as I previously stated, finding brand deals for them or people who could work out those kind of deals, you know, that would have been a way to go about it. In the face of mounting competition and a moving goalpost for achieving sufficient scale, the timeline for VidMe's sustainability as an independent platform became uncertain. As such, raising additional capital or continuing to operate the platform became untenable. When we started, we knew that we were taking a calculated risk, but in hindsight, we underestimated the speed at which the competitive landscape would change. And it goes on to talk about insights for newcomers here if you want to know like what to do, you know, with this kind of stuff. You know, that's all for the business side of it. But he goes on here to say, finally, what's next for the team? While we are disappointed to close something we put so much of our hearts into, we're excited and eager to apply what we've learned to our new product, which we'll be announcing next year. Unfortunately, not every member of the VidMe team will be staying on for the next chapter, so if you're interested in hiring people, here's some information. In the meantime, we're talking with some creator-focused companies that might incorporate our technology and revive VidMe in some new form in the future, which would be good if they can you know, if they can almost kind of like Pied Piper this thing and get it off to another company that might be able to utilize it more properly. They finish up here by saying, thank you. We feel incredibly grateful for the many people who have supported us in our mission over the past few years. Thank you to the early community members whose vital feedback helped improve the VidMe product. Thank you to our teammates who put their hearts into building a home for the creators of all kinds. We're proud of how much was accomplished by such a small team. Thank you to our friends and advisors. Thank you to our investors. And most of all, thank you to the creators who made VidMe possible. Thank you for investing your time and energy into building an incredible community, for graciously sharing your feedback and constructive criticism, and for delighting and amusing us every day with awesome videos. It has truly been a joy to watch people from all over the world connect, collaborate, and make new friends at VidMe. And we're happy to know that many of those relationships will long outlast VidMe itself. We feel deeply grateful to you, and we hope that you'll join us in our next adventure. Please sign up here if you want to do that, and this link will all be in the video description. So, I know I've kind of ranted on about this for a while now, and everything. And, again, I am not happy by any of this. You know, I understand that some might sit there and say, if you supported it, why didn't you use it more? And I think I went through that pretty well during the course of this thing. It's hard to do when you are a single creator trying to run a couple different things. The incentive to go over was not there. You know, not to say they didn't try, that they weren't doing the best that they could, that they didn't put out a good product, because they did. There were some controversies for the trending page and everything else. Or they had been accused, I believe, of deleting a couple more sensitive videos, but it was a good YouTube alternative for storing content that wasn't going to be, you know, that was going to get blasted by YouTube. I mean, if anything, the next company could pick it up as more of an archive state, right? It's all like, you know, we're archiving this, and then I don't know, or just if they're going to work with creators, you got to give them incentives. You got to give them incentives right now in order to get in there and stay in there. You know, and I've talked to friends of mine that want to do similar things like this, that want to do similar video platforms, and I've told them, and I'll tell you the same thing I told them, because they've come to me about creating content exclusively. I'm like, if you can guarantee me certain things, I will create certain specific exclusive content for that platform. But you have to be willing to, you know, like, it's not going to be me bringing my audience and then maybe one day we'll get paid. If you want me to do this, you've got to, you know, you got to show me the money. It's because that's where it's at. It's time is money at this point. And YouTube, despite all its flaws, still allows me to monetize this stuff and be able to pay my bills. And that is where this boils down to. From a creator perspective, the situation with VidMe is sad, because it was good to see an alternative. But from a business perspective, you can look at it and go, yeah, it makes sense. They weren't offering what was needed to build the audience. That $6 million that they got in, they should have done what YouNow is doing. Find a way to incentivize people to come on in. And, you know, I mean, YouTubers, content creators are very much like animals. They're food motivated. You can give them that cheddar, they'll be there. And it's not a selfish or greedy thing. It's a rational and logical thing, because people need to pay their bills and need to eat. And VidMe wasn't able to offer that. And to some extent, neither is YouTube these days. And I might sound cold and callous and heartless, but I'm being honest. There were reasons where we are where we are. I'm not happy about any of them. But I understand it, and I wish them luck in their next endeavor, and I hope they sell off the platform, and I hope the technology can go to somebody who can utilize it in a better way. I hope it can go to somebody who understands what it's going to take to bring an audience there. And I'm hoping that what they do next also incorporates the same lessons learned, because they were a good YouTube alternative. They just weren't a long-lasting one. And for that, I just wish them farewell and good luck.
Hey guys, that wraps up this video. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so below. I love to read your guys' input. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really does help me in the YouTube algorithm. If you want to support the channel, there's the Amazon affiliate store, there's PayPal, there's Patreon, there's Bitcoin. And if you're bored and you want something else to watch, check out 3 Buck Theater up here. My name is Matt Jabro. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a wonderful day. Peace out.
Listen already. You made a terrible mistake, mate. Not today, maggot. Right, well. Treasure. You'll never win. Not bloody likely. Run! You're not up that way. You're already good as dead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Angelo, and I am your MC for the evening.
YouTube has continued to attack alternative media by demonetizing most of our videos. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit our Amazon store or our Patreon page. Links below. Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jabro. This is the Mundane Matt channel, and over the course of the past couple months, Hollywood has imploded with claims of harassment and assault from people in all echelons of the industry. We just saw yesterday Matt Lauer fired from MSNBC after some very interesting and disturbing reports came out about him. He himself has come out and basically said that some of those were true, some of those weren't true, but enough was there to basically warrant his termination. Charlie Rose last week on CBS got let go. I mean, like, a lot of crazy things have happened in Hollywood as of late. And so the question is, what do you do? Well, in this particular story context, in the case of Johnny Depp, it goes back further than just a few months. We go back to last year. Right, middle or so around some time of last year, we started catching wind of allegations of abuse from his ex-wife Amber Heard. They, of course, put this out into the open, and we saw some video footage of it, and we saw some stuff of Johnny Depp pretty hammered. We learned reports, you know, just earlier this year about him blowing through tons and tons and tons of money, and his, you know, he's basically a mess. He's essentially a mess, but in some respects, he can still be a box office drop. Not so much Pirates of the Caribbean 5, but I do feel that Memorial Day was not the right weekend for that. So this whole story centers around him being cast as Grindelwald in the new Fantastic Beasts films, and it's not an unknown announcement. We saw the movie last year. He's got the cameo. It was announced in the summer of 2016 that he was going to be in the movie. This is not an unknown thing. No one freaked out about it as much as they are right now. But the thing is, J.K. Rowling, David Yates, and Warner's are all standing by the decision to hire him. Which is really fascinating because some fans aren't having it, which brings us to this headline. Harry Potter fan disappointed after J.K. Rowling blocks her for Johnny Depp question. Yeah, I know, right? So, let's take a look. It says here that a Harry Potter fan has gone viral after she was apparently blocked by J.K. Rowling for tweeting a question about Johnny Depp. The whole thing started Tuesday when 24-year-old lab technician Lindsay B. tagged Rowling in the following tweet. So if I understand correctly, the actor who played Crabbe, a minor character, was fired from Harry Potter for doing drugs. Yet Johnny Depp, who abused his wife, gets her major role in your movies. Correct me if I'm wrong. Well, Crabbe got arrested doing drugs, I think, and he was also a part of an underage film franchise at the time. That's, again, if you're just looking for context of aging. I'm not saying, like, you know, abuse and drugs are nowhere near the same category, even if sometimes correlation equals causation, but not always. So I get what the question is. And to be fair, given everything that's been going on recently, it's a fair question to ask, right? Crabbe was fired, you know, and everything else. It goes back, though, to just where were things at the time? And that is a big question that does need to get brought up quite a bit when these situations, when these comparisons are made. It's the what about scenario. When you have someone say, well, this happened, but what about this? It's like, well, yeah, but let's also compare the time when that happened, who was involved, context matters, all those things play into it. But again, just to go off the sake of whatever, let's say that her question does make sense. Now, Depp's inclusion in the Fantastic Beasts franchise has been a subject of controversy ever since news about his casting broke last November, a couple of weeks before the film was scheduled to be released. In May of 2016, Johnny Depp was accused of being physically abusive by his then-wife Amber Heard. Heard claimed in court that Depp bruised her eye after throwing a cell phone at her and was granted a temporary restraining order against him. Now, the Amber Heard situation as a whole is one that I do believe is up to the person, whoever's talking about it at the time. Mostly I say this because Amber Heard, it felt like, to a few of us who saw the video she put out, baited Johnny Depp at those moments. Like, she had this one where he's like thrashing around a kitchen, and it felt like the argument was that, like, they had already been fighting, she let it in there, she had the phone ready to go, phone ready to record, knew where, like, you know, his wine was and the glasses were, and wanted to show him on this drunken tirade. It felt like a staged event on her end in order to paint him in the worst possible light. That's not to say that he didn't throw a cell phone at her and bruise her eye, or he didn't act aggressively towards her. Just in that context, it felt different. We have no confirmation of that. It's something that many of us were feeling at the time, so it does kind of call a lot of other things into question for the veracity of them, how it all played out, things like that. Now, at the time, the news that he'd be appearing in Beasts drew criticism from fans. Not really. No one people were actually more excited that Johnny Depp was in the movie than not excited that Johnny Depp was in the movie, but then it also feels like November 2016, the early days of November 2016, were just a far-off time, a distant memory now of greener pastures, rainbows, and blowjobs. That's what it felt like. Now, totally different. But a couple of weeks ago, following the release of the first cast photo for Fantastic Beasts 2, which includes Depp once again as Grindelwald, the criticism has reignited. And again, it's due to the climate where we are right now. Had there not been the hashtag #MeToo movement, had the whole Harvey Weinstein thing not happened, had everything else not gone down, we would not be in this particular situation, to the point of where J.K. Rowling is now making trending news because she blocked a fan. Funny. Now, Lindsay did tell Mashable here, like a lot of fans, I do not agree with Depp playing Grindelwald. Well, it's not up for her, but she can vote with her wallet, which is what I would recommend anyone do. Personally, I didn't think Fantastic Beasts was that good of a movie. So much so that even when it was like $6 on Black Friday, I still went, I'll wait for the collection. I'll wait for the collection. I don't need to buy it. She goes on to say here, like I said in my tweet, he abused Amber, but because he's famous, his career won't be affected by his actions. To me, this is wrong, and that's why I'm against Johnny Depp playing a role in Fantastic Beasts. Look, a private affair made public is a hard one to come back from, right? Not saying Johnny Depp is innocent or vindicated or whatever, but clearly there are elements at play there that we don't all know. Clearly, it's his word versus her word. The video evidence we've seen looks a little bit, like I said before, like it felt like a staged, like, you know, like there was a fight, the fight broke out, and then there was, hey, let's move it in here, now I can record it, so we're going to be at the worst, and it's going to look better to the lawyers. Now, granted, there was a restraining order, but that restraining order was lifted. So, Lindsay said she decided to speak up on Twitter after reading David Yates' recent defense of Depp. Like I said, David Yates, Warners, and JK are all on board of this, meaning they either don't want to mess with what they've already got going on in pre-production, they don't want to mess with what they've already been able to build, they don't want to mess with the current canon, and it's not like, and just to be fair here, it's not like Harry Potter movies haven't had to recast people, right? Crabbe, as previously mentioned, was busted, was ousted, and replaced with some random person. So at the time of their demise in the 7th Harry Potter, or well, the 8th Harry Potter movie, it was a wholly different dude. It was Goyle and somebody else. And then you've also got, you know, Dumbledore dying and then being replaced by Michael Gambon, who completely mucked up the role. Should have gone to Ian McKellen. It's my bad. If only Richard Harris would have lived. Okay, just as a quick gripe, why did they cast Jude Law as young Albus Dumbledore? Clearly, Jared Harris, Richard Harris's son, would be the best person to play him. I just want to, that's a side thing. Sorry, that's my own gripe. Anyway, Lindsay said, she said this, next morning she noticed that J.K. Rowling had blocked her. Then you see that J.K. Rowling had blocked her. That's freaking fantastic. And she got a lot of retweets on that one. 54,000 almost. 100. 31,000 likes. There's no way some heat from this isn't going to blow back on JK. Now, at the time of writing, her tweet had been blocked, been shared over 44,000 times, so clearly it's gone up. Lindsay says she didn't know how to feel about the tweet going viral, saying, "I never expected this, and the reactions to the tweet have been very diverse. Some people congratulate me on being blocked, some tell me how sorry they are this happened, and of course, there's a bit of hatred." I think I like that the bit of hatred takes the final form there. That it's just a bit, not a lot, but a bit. So that's, I guess that's worth noting. She says, it goes on to say, "Me, correct me if I'm wrong. JK blocks me. I guess I wasn't wrong." It's also entirely possible, to be fair. Celebrities are people. Celebrities with political opinions are people, and there might just be times where they don't want to, you know, like one comment could be the straw that breaks a camel's back. Ultimately, I wouldn't take it personally. I'm personally blocked by many famous people that I actually really admire because they like to use block lists. Like, I'm a big Sean Astin fan. Love me some Goonies. Love me some Rudy. Love me Bob in Stranger Things Season 2. And he has me blocked on Twitter. You know, because of reasons. I have never said hi nor hair to the guy. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So Lindsay told Mashable that she was quite shocked but mostly disappointed by Rowling's decision to block her, saying, "I've admired her for so long, to find out I was blocked for stating my opinion was very disappointing." That goes to that whole freedom of speech. Doesn't necessarily mean free from consequences situation. It's kind of funny. So Mashable did reach out to J.K. Rowling's representatives, but were told that the offer was not available for comment. That's great. Now, the thing here, the reason why this is funny to me is because J.K. Rowling many times pops up, you know, with these like, "I'm going to blast Donald Trump" tweets. And she ends up getting lots of love, lots of attention, lots of praise because she's, you know, speaking truth to power, even though she's, you know, one of the richest women in the world. She's a billionaire, for crying out loud. Off of a novel series she started writing on the backs of napkins when she was a single parent back in the 1980s. You know, I mean, or the early 90s, whenever the hell she wrote. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The point is, it's a very popular franchise. I love the book series. I love the movies, even though I don't agree with her politically. And this is one of those moments in time where you have to also ask yourself, are you going to be influenced by a person's politics or by a person's actions when seeing the film? Since the idea of an actor is to meld into, morph into a part, to no longer be that part. And Johnny Depp is very, very, very good at that, despite other misgivings as a human. He's very good at playing those roles. Is this going to be something you're going to be able to look past? I'm going to argue that 90% of you out there, and probably more like 95%, if not higher, would say, yeah, oh yeah, totally, no problem. You don't care because as soon as you hear the theme song and you see the characters and you're back in the world, you're going to be happy about it. But there are going to be people out there that are going to try to make this a political issue for no other reason than they just don't have anything else to do on a Friday night at 9 p.m. And that's going to be a problem, because in this world right now, we have these kind of people that well, look, okay, I just want to, before I go into this little rant part, I want to say Lindsay's question is not bad. As I previously stated, I just want to reiterate that point. Her question makes sense. It's a question. But at the time, to be fair, J.K. Rowling, just in general, to be fair, J.K. Rowling is not necessarily the person that has final say on that. She was involved in the casting of the Harry Potter series, and she was an exec producer on the series, but she didn't cut the checks. She didn't have final say. It went to the directors, it went to the producers. She was kind of there in name only, so to speak. She's more involved in these films, where she wrote the screenplay for the first movie and this new movie. And so, you know, but she's still not in the casting. The casting would go to, again, the producers at Warner Brothers and David Yates. Not to say she doesn't have weight she could throw behind it, but this is a multi-billion-dollar franchise, right? This is a multi-billion-dollar franchise. At this point, it's better just to weather this storm than it is to get out there and say, yeah, fire Johnny Depp. It's just not going to happen. The best course of action for J.K. Rowling would have been for her just to not say anything, because now that she's blocked this woman, that's out there. Articles are being written, videos are being made, right? There people are talking about this, and they're going to be talking about J.K. Rowling for a while, and so it's not going to look good. At this point, I would assume she's been contacted by Warner Brothers, by her agent or by a representative of some kind, and been told to shut up, And if she was smart, and she is, she's going to. Does that mean it's going to stop people like Lindsay from trying to lead an attack against the film when it comes out? I don't know. And to be perfectly honest with you, them not responding now is for the best. Just let it kind of flare up right now, but then just, you know, kind of ember itself out, smother itself out. It will spike up again by the time the film comes out, but we could be in a wholly different place a year from now. And it'd be better to deal with it then than to deal with it now and let that resentment kind of build up. Additionally speaking, fans can have an impact. I do want that to be known. I look at the whole situation with EA and Star Wars Battlefront 2 and the whole controversy there. Fans can hurt a movie. And after Justice League failed to deliver to the way that Warner's wants, this is their next big franchise. They don't want to mess with it. So expect mum's the word from literally every person working with this movie when asked a question about this particular topic. And it's, I'm just telling you, from a business perspective, it's going to be for the best.
Hey guys, that wraps up this video. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so below. I love
YouTube has continued to attack alternative media by demonetizing most of our videos. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit our Amazon store or our Patreon page. Links below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Fatt Jabro. This is the Mundane Matt channel. What we're looking at right now are the top trends on Twitter in the United States. Now, if you notice here, you got Eli Manning, North Korea, Porg from Star Wars, you know, oh, Angela Lansbury. Oh, God, no. Oh, God. Not Angela. Not Angela Lansbury. No, not Angela Lansbury. We're fine. She's trending because she said some stuff that people got mad at. And when I say people, I mean like feminists and social justice warriors and the regressive leftists and those annoying people you really want to avoid all the time that are perpetually outraged over everything anyone ever says, regardless of context or, I don't know, upbringing or backgrounds or things like that. What we have here is Angela Lansbury, 92 years old. 8 years away from cracking that centennial, saying that women who have been sexually harassed can be blamed for making themselves look attractive. Now, the Daily Mail headline here is a little bit on the salacious side. It's not entirely what she said or what she meant, but you can already see why there's frothing of the mouths and why people are angrily clacking on their keyboards or breaking their screens at Starbucks while sucking on a latte, trying to get out why they mad about a 92-year-old woman's view about sexual harassment in the workplace. Keep in mind, Angela Lansbury been in Hollywood a long time. So she would know a thing or two. She's got some stories, I guarantee you. But let's see what she has to say here. Dame Angela Lansbury asserted that women must sometimes take blame for sexual harassment cases. The veteran actress, 92, argued that making an effort to look attractive has ultimately backfired for women, and it explains where we are today. To an extent, she might have a point. I mean, well, she says there are two sides to every coin, which is always true. There's always two sides to every story, and always three versions of the truth. Your truth, my truth, and the actual truth. But in this case, the two sides to every coin thing is an interesting kind of thought to go down. So it says we have to own up to the fact that women, since the immemorial, have gone out of their way to make themselves attractive. Now, oftentimes, feminists would chalk this up to being about the patriarchy. This is how you survive in a man's world. You have to make yourself look as attractive as humanly possible. Stand out. Peacock the crowd a little bit. Get their attention. That's how doors open. Funny thing, when it comes to attracting a female mate, in many cases, it's the exact same, but for men. I'm not even kidding you. I mean, there's literally a pickup artist term called peacocking that is taken from the term peacocking, you know, and it's not necessarily done in traditional standards of beauty all the time, but it's that, you know, making that case for like, I'm the best person here, you know, so it's something to consider. And she says, and unfortunately it has backfired on us, and this is where we are today. We must sometimes take blame. Women, I really do think that. I don't know if I would argue this is where we are today in terms of the sexual harassment angle of it is simply because women have tried to make themselves look pretty and therefore it's backfired. I don't know if I agree with that 100%. I don't think there's malicious nature in what she's saying, but Hollywood in and of itself has always prided, especially in the last like 30-40 years, on finding like, you know, the young, well, no, maybe not even 33. We're talking the entire time. They wanted to find the young new star, and that idea has always kind of gone through the generations or gone through the decades, and it's kind of a base business model. Work with someone while they're young and hot and attractive. They hit a certain point, kick them to the curb, then they come back in 15 years once they've kind of gone past their prime, but now they can play the mom and grandmother roles and things like that. So it says here that the veteran star said women should not have to risk sexual assault when they make themselves look attractive, and argued there is no excuse for such behavior. So that's where it's a little bit on the back and forth side. She's saying you have to take the blame for harassment, but you should never experience it. Is that like saying if you leave your car window down and someone steals your purse, like, you should blame yourself because you left your car window? That's kind of the analogy I think she's going for there. Odd analogy, but again, I kind of get it. I think the idea there is that, like, she comes from a more modest conservative time, right? She's, you know, a modest conservative British actress. Not conservative in the general, what we know as conservatism today, but the modest approach to it. You know, I'm not going to show my ankles. I don't want any men, you know, in their pants. And just being very prim and proper and British. And now it's an entirely different world. One of the best examples of this in terms of feature film would be something like Mr. Holland's Opus, where it covers the 4 decades that Richard Dreyfuss spent teaching music at this school. And it starts off, I think, in the 1950s or 1960s, maybe 30 years. It was 30 years. It starts off in the 60s and goes all the way to the 90s, but goes through the different generations. And so you get the idea of kind of how things have changed and how things adapt and evolve over time. So, and I think that maybe the idea of beauty has kind of been like the show more, not less. More makeup, more looking like somebody else. Don't be yourself while still trying to be something. And I think that's maybe the mindset that she's referring to. Now, she does say here, although it's awful to say that we can't make ourselves look as attractive as possible without being knocked down and raped. Yeah. It is awful to say that. She added, but should women be prepared for this? No, they shouldn't have to be. There's no excuse for that. Now, she goes on here to say, sexually inappropriate behavior in the workplace will have to stop now. Also saying, I think a lot of men, they must be very worried at this point. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people are pretty worried at this point because it's been a couple months of hashtag Me Too. Accusations are coming out all the time. People's careers are ending. And who knows what's going to happen next. I don't know. And then the article goes on to talk, seriously, the rest of the article literally is just recapping the entirety of the Harvey Weinstein situation. But when you look at Angela Lansbury, right, you got to kind of understand this woman has been through a lot, seen a lot, done a lot. Okay, so she's got probably an interesting take on it. But like I said, she's also kind of a posh, prim, conservative Brit. And I might have screwed those terms up. That's fine. You guys get what I'm trying to say. That's what she's experienced. But she also starred in the 1944 film Gaslight, which gave the term gaslighting, which she's kind of doing here with this. I don't know. I'm not mad at her for what she said. I do think sexual harassment is a problem. I do think that attacking women based upon the way that they look for dressing either conservative or dressing less than conservative is dumb. I think women should be able to dress how they want. I think they should. If men can dress how they want, women can dress how they want. The only thing I don't want to see are like public displays of like sex. That's it, really. And if you don't feel like you should walk around in a bikini, maybe it's not the best idea to do so. I wouldn't do it in a thong. Nobody wants to see that. You know, I still think that there are public levels of decency, but it's kind of like a flex line, you know? That's the way I personally see it. I'm not mad at her. I see why people are mad at her. The people that are outraged, they might have a decent point this time, because the comments do seem very... It doesn't really feel like so innocuous as it does, like... She hasn't really, I don't know. I don't know. I like, part of me feels because of what I do and I generally tend to criticize social justice warriors. So when they are outraged over something, I usually take the contrarian side, irregardless of the point. Just to point out that they're always mad. But this is a situation where I'm not saying I agree with them, but I do understand their argument. More so than probably with some other ones. You know, I don't know. It's like, I've got a daughter coming. So mark that on your usual Mundane Map bingo. Just a couple weeks she'll be here. And I'm thinking more about that, you know. And it's like when she gets to a certain age, like, you know, I'm going to want her to be comfortable. I don't want her to dress like she's going to be going to Jersey Shore or anything else like this. But it's like, I want her to be comfortable and to be feeling good in her own skin. Right? And, you know, like if someone doesn't like that and they say certain things to her, I don't want her to feel that it's her fault. I don't want her to feel that she should blame herself if she ever gets it. Because while I feel that the problems to some extent are not as bad as others have made them out to be, to some extent, they still happen. There's no denying that. And so, as a result of that, I want there to always be back on the person who did it, not the person who received it. So while, you know, I might sit there and criticize someone for complaining about being bullied online or something, or like, you know, hey, we all deal with this crap, whatever, I'm not telling that person, like, you don't need to, you know, like, you don't blame yourself for getting these comments. Do something about the comments. Like, be proactive in the situation. So I'm not blaming a person for that. So I would never blame a woman who got catcalled and didn't like it for wearing that certain thing. I think many years ago, I think what I would say in that point is I would say something along the lines of like, and I think maybe this is where she's coming from, this is just my take on it. If you leave the house wearing something provocative, and you know it's provocative, you dress a certain way because it's provocative, you know that where you're going or where you're going to be, this is going to be your peacock moment. I think it's a realistic expectation that people are going to look, gawk, stare, or say something. And I think having that realistic expectation in the forefront of your mind while you're dressing yourself, and this goes for any gender, would go further into tackling this kind of situation versus not. Being fully aware of how you are impacting your general surroundings, even though ultimately it shouldn't matter. You still, while looking a certain way, cannot control how others are going to respond to it. So that is something to consider. I'm not blaming anyone. Just saying, I think it should be a level of personal responsibility. But on the subject of Hollywood and women who do go to Hollywood with the explicit intent of dolling themselves up to play certain parts, it is part of a game that will never end. And so when it comes to sexual harassment or sexual assault or sexual abuse or the casting couch stuff, I'm not in favor of any of that. I understand when you go to LA and you want to act or you want to do whatever, you are playing a part. You are playing a part. You are playing a part when you walk into an audition. You are playing a part when you get headshots done. You are playing a part all the time. Whether that part is you or a version of you, you are playing that part. And I think that's might be what she's talking about, is because maybe in her mind, the way that the entertainment industry works, the way that Hollywood works, the way that the system operates, is that it's one big jumble. You're always playing something else. And over time, you change who you are, and it can become something. And maybe that's what she's referring. I don't know. It's an odd thing to discuss. And the comments here should be very interesting. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here, to be honest with you. I think that people who are mad at her for what she said should be more disappointed versus mad. And the people that are vehemently defending her because they want to get back at the other side should look at what she said, how she said it, and apply it to the larger scheme of things concerning Hollywood right now. And then maybe kind of come together in some middle understanding, perhaps. Or I could just be talking out my ass. Who knows? I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below.
Hey guys, that wraps up this video. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so below. I love to read your guys' input. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really does help me in the YouTube algorithm. If you want to support the channel,
YouTube has continued to attack alternative media by demonetizing most of our videos. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit our Amazon store or our Patreon page. Links below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Fatt Jabro. This is the Mundane Mad channel, and Magic the Gathering had a bit of a kerfuffle over the course of this past weekend. During Thanksgiving weekend 2017, you had a prominent cosplayer by the name of Christine Sprinkle decide that she was going to vacate the community, vacate cosplaying as Magic the Gathering characters, and move on because of targeted harassment, mostly, according to her, at the hand of a man by the name of Unsleeved Media, or MTG headquarters on YouTube. He's gone by multiple names, and according to people on the Magic the Gathering subreddit, he's not very well liked, is from what I can gather. You have many people that are trying to say that this is just a whole bunch of SJWs trying to run out anti-SJWs, and then if you go to the Reddit, you can find out that the mods were in fact they locked the post, they were deleting lots of comments, getting rid of the riffraff, if you will, and so it kind of leaves the average person to kind of go, what the hell is going on with that community? Because it always seems to be a problem. There always seems to be those claims about sexism and misogyny and harassment in the Magic the Gathering community. Now, in the course of looking into the story, I hit my sister up, who actually happens to have played a lot of Magic the Gathering with her ex-boyfriend. She was learning with her ex-boyfriend, going to weekly events in Portland. And I hit her up and I asked her, like, hey, how sexist is it? How horrible is Magic the Gathering? And she's like, not at all. One guy asked me out for my boyfriend, that was it. And I'm like, oh, so no one's like, no one's like harassing, no one's like berating you for not being good. She's like, at tournaments maybe, but they're trying to help you, so they might just do it in a different way. No, like, you know what? I think that's probably more akin to what it is people out there are critical, and they may not be the nicest about it, and that's oftentimes kind of how the internet operates. Yes, don't get me wrong, there are douches on the internet. You can't be a YouTuber or any kind of content creator without dealing with them. But ultimately, it boils down to just kind of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. You just have to roll with that mantra. So this is where we find ourselves with the whole Christine Sprinkle situation. Now, it kind of started originally with this tweet from Daniel whatever his name is, saying here, if there's still a single one of you who doubted the toxicity and misogyny of our community, today our most prominent cosplayer was driven out of Magic at the end of a long campaign of harassment by the worst among us. Silence his complicity. Do something about it. Now, this type of listen and believe behavior is one that you find in almost every community out there, now that we've seen social justice warriors kind of migrate themselves into these different sub-communities, if you will. We saw this in gaming a number of years ago. It's been in Magic for a couple of years as well. There's been controversies at least once a year for as far back as I can remember. Always something along those lines. Like, you can't do this, it's so mean. But it just kind of tends to be the case, and the reason why, and this is honest to God, the best way to describe it. The reason why this happens, my friends, is because you have people that are very thin-skinned, that are new to something, going into a long-standing, you could call it community, if that's what you want to refer to it as. Maybe, MTG's been around for well over 20 years, so yeah, you could call that a long-standing community. There are people there that are going to have their own in-jokes, they're going to have their own their own little kind of like subgroups. They're going to have their own little cliques. They're going to have their own thing. And then you get these SJWs come on in, or these whatever you want to call them coming on in, and they end up wanting things to be done their way, and then they cry harassment when it doesn't happen. And I'm not saying that's precisely what happened here. I don't fully know, to be honest with you. I don't really follow this drama, and I can't sit there and give you one clear picture or another. I can only show you what I found, because a lot of the stuff tends to be deleted, or it's not really kind of put out there in ways we can easily find it. So all we can really do at this point is kind of just go back to the beginning, which is, well, this particular Reddit thread. Saying here, Christine Sprinkle quitting Magic cosplay due to barrage of toxic harassment. Now that particular title in and of itself is one that's guaranteed to draw a reaction, right? Christine Sprinkle being a big Magic the Gathering cosplayer. You know, here where she's got her patrons, 308 patrons a month, saying that cosplay is her passion in life. It's how she expresses herself. It's a way for her to share things that she loves with others. She began cosplaying in 2004, but really hit the scene with Magic the Gathering World Champions in 2011, when she cosplayed as Elspeth Tyrell. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Since then, I've been doing as much Magic and other cosplay as I can. Okay, so she found a niche that worked for her. She went to this thing that didn't really have a lot of cosplaying, kind of hit the ground running, became a bit of a trend within that community. From what I gathered from other videos that I've seen on the issue, she was paid to go and promote these events, paid to go to these fan meetups, so on and so forth. So she found a niche for her to make herself some extra money, some extra coin, and do what she loves. Hey, cool, good for her. Honest to God, I do the same thing. I would love to be paid to go to events. It's probably never gonna happen, but I'd still freaking love it. But that being said, you can see where she kind of got her start. Now this whole thing here, you can see it's a locked comment. It's a locked post. 1,700 comments. So many of these were deleted. So many people were coming in and trolling, to the point of where here you have the mods saying that they cleaned out a bunch of stuff, banned a bunch of people, and they said, you know, here are ground rules. You know, if you suggest being brutally harassed is something people should expect and they should grow a thicker skin or get used to the real world, or in any way suggest it's somehow the victim's fault for not living up to your expectations of resilience, you may get a permanent ban. I love that they say brutally harassed. I do get a kick out of that, to be honest with you, because essentially, I believe this is the first set of, you know, before we jump into this one here, this particular person, okay, Unsleeved Media MTG headquarters, okay, even Christine herself has come out and said some stuff, but this essentially is what it's all about. So according to this particular tweet here, it says here, Unsleeved Media / MTG headquarters was pretty relentless in his targeting of her. He had a total of 3 now frantically deleted, it seems, videos calling her a pornographer with quotes like, she's a dog, a 3 out of 10, I'd still do her, and he mockingly called her a man too. Now, this is trollish behavior, I think, to the best of the description of the term. And that's essentially what it really kind of boils down to here. It's trollish behavior. Yeah, he says, it all makes sense. This guy does a pretty good job cosplaying this card. The guy is allowed to have an opinion on somebody else who does this as a job. He can have his opinion. You can agree with it. You can disagree with it, so on and so forth. Now, I don't know much about this guy outside of his another YouTube channel of his called The Quartering. I really don't. So this is the one clip kind of making the rounds to give you an idea of how bad it is. And just give it a listen to see whether or not you think this guy's being a troll, being a harasser, or just in general being kind of a douche.
And look at the ultimate cucklord in general, first to respond. Keep doing what you do. It's having a wonderful effect on our community. Let me tell you something. Real Magic players give 0 fucks about cosplayers. 0. I'll be at GP Vegas. I don't care how many fucking 6 out of 10s get dressed up like Magic players to feel like 8 out of 10s for the day. Nobody cares. Only you and the fucking losers who give you their money on Patreon give a rat's ass about what Magic player you dress up as for a GP. I'm sorry, cosplay is just lingerie.
Yeah, cosplay is just lingerie. It's not necessarily a wrong statement, to be fair. But at the same time, that's really not that horrific of a statement to make. That's not brutal harassment. That's not brutal sexism. He's just saying he doesn't like cosplay. He views it as just an assault on the senses. That's really about it. He doesn't care. Really shouldn't matter. And ultimately, it comes across as a bit of a douchey troll. That's how I view it. And again, I saw his video in response to all this, and he essentially was pointing out that he made one video over 6 months ago that, well, basically, that was it. And people are bringing that up as being the targeted harassment against him. Well, somebody else on that particular Reddit thread did put this together about Unsleeved Media or MTG headquarters or Jeremy, whatever his name is. And this is an interesting post because it does give you an idea a little bit about, I think, how the community perceives him. Just because I always feel it's fair to look to see how people look at this kind of guy. And you can tell this was well liked because it has 1,700 upvotes and someone gave them Reddit Gold. So